If you want the Las Vegas Raiders to sign free agent Emmanuel Ogbah, smash that like button right now. Do you believe that you can never have too many edge rushers? Hit that like button. Do you believe that having more people get after Patrick Mahomes could ever be a bad thing? The answer is no. And I also know that the fit makes sense. Coming up here on today's show, I'm going to tell you why the Raiders should go out, make the move, and sign Emmanuel Ogbah. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, ESPN released an article, Best NFL Team Fits for Remaining Free Agents and Trade Candidates. Ogbah, he was selected for the silver and black, and I'm going to tell you why I agree with the Raiders. And yes, they should go out and sign Emmanuel Ogbah. Hell, a lot of people that watch this show that are subscribed, that are the real ones that we always talk about. I've been talking about this for weeks, and I'm going to tell you if he does end up signing with the silver and black, when it would happen, because there are 3 days, very important days, and when I think Ogbah would sign that dotted line for Las Vegas. So here's what the article was from ESPN Plus, and I know not a lot of people have this, so I decided to take this article, make it into a video here because Ogbah's a big-time name. We are through the main transaction portion of the 2024 NFL offseason as teams have reloaded with free agent signings, trade acquisitions, and draft picks. OTA workouts are rolling, and mandatory minicamps are closer than you think, but a handful of unsigned free agents are still looking for a roster, and there's always the possibility of a trade or two before training camps start up in July. With that in mind, let's find ideal landing spots for 14 veteran free agents plus one big-name receiver who requested a trade to fill the remaining team needs or add depth. When I evaluate player to a team matches, I'm looking at how each guy fits in a scheme, how each might be able to help immediately, and whether the team has the cap space to add players. This late in the process, most of these players will end up signing one-year low-risk deals that include incentives to make some more cash. So ESPN outlined why they decided to look at these 14 players and have them linked to certain teams. With Ogbah being linked to the silver and black, and with the amount of times that I've talked about this just in the last a few weeks, but even you go back even before the draft, I was saying Emmanuel Ogbah should be a player that the Raiders target. I'm going to tell you why the Raiders should listen to ESPN and why the Raiders should listen to the Raiders Report and go out and sign Ogbah. I will promise you this as well. If this team makes this move and they go out and they land him, we're going live. I promise you this right now. I can't promise you whether they're going to sign him. I can't even promise you how much money it's going to be. I can't even tell you that I promise if he's going to be good or not. I think he'll be good, and I'll be on this show celebrating it. And if they make this deal happen, we're going live, we're partying, bring your drinking pants. It's going to be a movie. So here's why the Raiders should go out and sign Emmanuel Ogbah. They still need depth at defensive end. Maxx Crosby, stud. Malcolm Kuntz, going to be a good player. Tyree Wilson, hoping that he has a breakout year, but there is still a little bit of that uncertainty. After that, Emmanuel Ogbah is an upgrade over every single other name that you see up there on screen. And with the shenanigans that Janarius Robinson did this offseason, I would move on from him. And then you'd have Crosby, Kuntz, Tyree, Ogbah, who can still get after the quarterback. Not bad at all. The Raiders, they still need some of that extra pass rush because it is never a bad thing. I will never sit up here, and if the Raiders go out and they sign an edge, now obviously if they sign somebody to a ridiculous contract, I might sit back and pause a little bit. But at this point in the offseason, it probably will be a one-year deal. It probably will be a low-risk deal with high incentives, and I'm okay with the high incentives. If Ogbah goes out there and he balls out, I'm okay paying any player that. Hell, I've said multiple times that if it was up to me, most contracts would be incentive-based. Then when you look at the numbers for Ogbah, 5.5 sacks last season, limited time. 2022, he got hurt, but in 2021 and 2020, guess what? He was working with Rob Leonard, Raiders defensive line coach now, and he had 18 sacks combined in those 2 seasons. Emmanuel Ogbah would look great in silver and black. Now, I like to think that I'm looking pretty good, too. Also in my Jim Otto jersey, RIP to one of the GOATs out there. And I saw today that you can get a Jim Otto jersey on sale. Usually they're $130. You can get it now for $90. And I'm thinking just because of our jersey sponsor, wanted to be able to just say, hey, we got some of these Jim Otto jerseys. They're from like extra small. I want to say they go all the way up to 5XL. Raider Ron wanted me to rock a Jim Otto jersey, so I'm rocking my Jim Otto jersey. And if anybody out there wants to be able to rock this awesome jersey, maybe the Otto family on top of that, the link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. Chatsports.com/Otto. Again, the jersey was on sale. Because it was on sale, I said, you know what? I bet a lot of people amongst the nation right now would take advantage of this awesome deal to be able to rep one of the greatest Raiders of all time. Chatsports.com/Otto. Let's go to the next story coming up here around why the Raiders should sign Emmanuel Ogbah. He has worked with players and he has worked with coaches. So, like, already, I think one of the biggest risks that you have when you add a player is, does he fit with the team? Is the chemistry going to be there? Not too often do you know that the answer is going to be yes. Ogbah worked with Rob Leonard, Raiders defensive line coach, in 2020 and in 2021. He's also played with Christian Wilkins, who the Raiders signed to a massive deal this offseason. He's also played with Adam Butler and John Jenkins back from their time in Miami. On top of that, which, you know, at this point, I'm kind of looking for the cherry on top. I'm looking for the sprinkles, or I recently found out that some people call sprinkles jimmies, which that was one of the most mind-blowing things I've heard all weekend. Back to the show, though, Ogbah also played with the Chiefs in 2019. And one of the things that Telesco has said before that he values is players that have AFC West experience. Has AFC West experience. On top of that, won a Super Bowl. And I get it. It was with Kansas City. But for a team that doesn't have really any playoff experience, you're still hoping that this team finds a way to make it into the playoffs. And if you make it in, you got a chance to win. If all you got to do is a chance to make the dance, then anybody can do it. So having playoff experience, AFC West experience, relationships with players and coaches, you add all of that together. Yes, I do think that the Raiders should sign Emmanuel Ogbah. I am going to type my S for sign, but this show isn't about me. It's about all of y'all. This is the pinned comment on today's show. Scroll on down, give me your answer. Should the Raiders sign Emmanuel Ogbah? Yes, they should sign him because also they have the money to do so. Like, if the Raiders were penny pinching, if they didn't have any money, then this would be a totally different conversation. So not only does he fit the scheme, not only does he have the relationship with the players, the coaches, like, this signing is starting to make almost too much sense. Hell, I can almost make the argument it makes just as much sense to sign Ogbah as it does Xavier Howard. Hell, they're both teammates. Put them together on one team. You got $18.4 million in cap space according to Over the Cap. That's 14th best in the league. You're also going to get $24.1 million after June 1st from that Jimmy G money. So let's just say you add both of that together, you're going to be at $42.5 million in cap space somewhere around June 2nd, which somewhere going to be around the third most in the NFL. And I've had people say, Mitch, well, you got to extend certain guys. With $42.5 million, you have enough money to go out and get Emmanuel Ogbah. You have enough money to go out and sign Xavier Howard. And you have enough money to give contract extensions to Robert Spillane, Nate Hobbs. I don't think Malcolm Kuntz is going to do it, though. I would love for him to get an extension. You have the money to give extensions and go get your guy in Emmanuel Ogbah. Then he's the best edge available. Like, there was other players out there, and recently I've talked about Bud Dupree, which he recently just went to the Chargers. Another player that I brought up is Yannick Ngakoue, who has a good relationship with Maxx Crosby, who was a Raider back in 2021. And Ngakoue really only gives you the ability to get after the quarterback, where Ogbah still gives you ability to do a little bit of both. And on top of the fact that he can be that outside stand-up linebacker, because that's also something that he did with Rob Leonard back when Miami ran a 3-4 defense, so it was a little bit different. But I actually think that having somebody that can be a stand-up outside linebacker, edge, defensive end type of talent, somebody that you just allow him to pin his ears back at age 30, gives you some of that playoff experience. You add all of that stuff together is why I think that, yes, the Las Vegas Raiders would be very smart to go out and sign Emmanuel Ogbah. So coming up here is, if I'm sitting up here saying yes, and I think most of the people that are watching the show right now are saying, yes, it makes sense to do it, well, when would it happen? I'll tell you when I think it would happen, because there's 3 dates to keep in mind. I do got to give a shout-out to the Noti gang. Shout out to David Silva, Ron Raspberry, and Martin. These were the first 3 people to comment on a video that I dropped recently. I asked Chugs, I said, hey, Chugs, man, who's part of the Noti gang? Who are we rocking with? And he gave me these 3 names here. So if you want to see your name up on the Raiders Report, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell. If you don't know where it is, it's underneath the video. It literally looks like that. Click all. That way when I drop a video, you get an alert on your phone, just like a booty call. All right, so when is Ogbah going to sign with the Raiders if it does end up going down? I would say right after June 1st. Like, I'm making this video right now. It is May 20th at the time that I am recording, and guess what? It's not going to happen now, and I don't even see it happen during Raiders OTAs. You got 90 players on the roster. You're allowed to have 91, so they can still sign them. They don't have to cut anybody. You take that money, you take all of that extra money that you're going to get after the Jimmy Garoppolo cutting, and if I'm Ogbah, I'm looking and I'm like, do I want to sign with a team right now that's got $18.4 million in cap space, or do I want to sign with a team that's going to have close to 42.5? The answer is 42.5. So not only does it make sense for Ogbah to wait until after June 1st, it also makes a lot of sense for the Raiders to wait until after June 1st. The other date that I would say you could potentially look at is after Raiders OTAs, and this was something that I talked about last week, that if I was Antonio Pierce and I'm Telesco, I actually roll with the roster that I have throughout the entirety of OTAs, and if I do decide to bring somebody in, maybe it would be like June 3rd, because then you practice June 3rd, June 4th, June 5th, June 6th. A guy like Ogbah, though, I don't really see him showing up to OTAs, so you could potentially sign after June 6th, and the reason why that this is an important date is because he doesn't want to participate in OTAs, but I do think having him out there at mandatory minicamp would be at least good. That's from June 11th to June 13th. So if you end up signing after OTAs June 6th, you kind of get the ability to move to Vegas, get acclimated for a few days, and then you're ready to go for June 11th, June 13th. But the date that I think that if a guy like Ogbah ends up signing with the Raiders or with any NFL team, I would say right before training camp is when it's going to end up happening. Remember last offseason, all the Marcus Peters talk when, I got to give my guy his flowers, shout out to Graf, where Graf was like, months before it actually happened, the Raiders are going to sign Marcus Peters. It's going to happen. And this is kind of what would have to happen. So NFL training camp, gets going around July 29th, and the Raiders' first preseason game is August 10th. I am a believer that most veterans like Ogbah that don't really think that they need to practice at this point in their career, they're going to be able to show up, be in game shape, be ready to rock and roll, they would probably sign right before training camp gets underway. Again, you get acclimated to Vegas, you get out there, you get situated, and then that way you're ready to jump in head first for training camp. So in conclusion, I agree with ESPN that the Raiders should sign Ogbah. Hell, if I'm Emmanuel Ogbah and his agent, the number one team that I'd want to go to is probably the Las Vegas Raiders. You got a really good opportunity in front of you, and what if they decide to put Tyree Wilson on the inside all the time, and then they let Emmanuel be just like that extra rotational piece behind Malcolm Kuntz and Maxx Crosby? Big opportunity. I will say if it happens, it will be after June 1st. I do think it'll happen if it does right before training camp, and my projected that it would come out to is about 1 year, $5 million contract with the incentive to get up to probably like $8, maybe $9 million. So Emmanuel, if you're watching the show, and you want to join the Raiders report, and you want to rock that shield, you want to rock the silver and black, hit me up on IG or Twitter at MitchellRens365. Would love to make it happen.